Izuku Midoriya's life starts a lot differently, because Izuku Midoriya isn't actually Izuku Midoriya. He would be born into a family, well, where his mother has an ice quirk and his father has a flame/fire quirk. And this would be the Todoroki family. But the thing is, he would actually be, well, twins with someone we know as Shoto Todoroki. But when he was born, his father would be pissed. Endeavor would be angry, not because necessarily Izuku was a bad kid, not because he was, something that he was unwanted, but when he was just a little baby, he would start showing signs of having an ice quirk, and that was it. Having ice powers that would begin to kind of cover the area around him, at least just briefly. The small room that he's in would be slightly covered in a thin sleet or a thin kind of thing of ice, and it seems like his ice powers would come to be pretty quickly. But as Endeavor would see this, he would be so angry. He would be pissed off. He would be frustrated. But then when he gets a good look at his other child, Shoto Todoroki, he realizes his hair, it's both red and it's both icy or white, and this is proof enough for him to know that his son will have ice and fire powers. Best of both worlds, the best quirk you could possibly imagine, something that could even be better than All Might. And after seeing this, well, this would actually make him think that he doesn't need this kid. So he decides that instead of keeping him, instead of raising him, he kind of throws him to the wayside as if he's some sort of kind of useless / some sort of kind of child that he never wanted. So what does he do? Well, he puts him in the adoption system. And when he actually is in that system, he would actually be adopted by Inko Midoriya, giving him eventually the name of Izuku Midoriya. And this would be someone that, well, Inko was really excited to adopt because, well, her husband / boyfriend or basically love interest was actually overseas and wouldn't be back for a very, very long time. And she decided that she wanted to have a child. She wanted to have someone that she could raise and call her own. And Izuku Midoriya would be then brought into exactly what she wanted him to be brought into. But what she doesn't know is that Izuku's powers, Izuku's quirk, and what Izuku is capable of is beyond even her comprehension. Because Izuku would be adopted by Inko, and as the years would go by, he would show off these powers, show off these ice powers that many people would see as pretty damn awesome. But as he gets older, as he progresses throughout his life, from the ages of 4 to all the way up until about 15 years old, his ice powers seemingly get stronger and stronger and stronger, to the point where it seems like there's no bound to how much power he can truly have. I mean, he is showing off stuff that even many wouldn't even imagine. He'd be able to heal wounds with his ice. He'd be able to manipulate the temperature around them in a certain area to absolute zero. He would have so much more than you could imagine. Even some sort of sub-zero armor that is basically unbreakable, and he could stand there and take hits from the strongest of beings you could think of. And he continues to add more and more to his arsenal, and continues to add more and more to what you could imagine. Because his ice powers, well, it even allows him to create different kind of structures and different kind of fortresses, you could even say, and everything that's in there could be tempered with, and the ice itself could be made to be of normal temperature but still be frozen, but then you wouldn't feel the actual coldness of that kind of ice. It's a very odd thing, a very, very interesting thing, and the control he has on it seems to be just absolutely insane and unbelievable to a large extent. And of course, this is definitely something that Inko thinks about quite a bit, because she's like, well, how do I, take care of somebody who is, just obscenely strong and powerful? Like, how do I make sure that, he does the right things, he's doesn't get too over his own head, all this stuff, because that's a big thing. Like, how does she keep him in check? Not in check in a bad way necessarily, but just make sure that he has the right morals. Because Izuku, well, he did slowly but surely start becoming a more cocky kid, someone who thinks that he's larger than life. But with Inko at his side and helping him as much as possible, he would begin to get toned down a little bit. He definitely would be kind of showing, you could say, right? Showing off that endeavor side, that cocky side, that side of him that definitely is more arrogant. But of course, he would be able to subside that part of him quite a bit with the help of Inko and with the help of, some other notable figures. And Izuku would continue on learning and just preparing himself for his potential UA entrance exam that he's super, super, super excited about. Because that UA entrance exam is what he's going to be preparing for, and what a lot of other students will be preparing for as well. Now, with all that said, the last day of middle school would be coming very soon, and he would hear from his teacher that he already knows that everybody wants to, go on, and everyone wants to go on and try to be a hero, and they want to be, a pro hero, and that's what everyone wants to do, right? That there's no other kind of thing that most people even want to get into. They want to be a pro hero, and that's the reality of some of these people. That's the reality of a lot of what people are trying to do, and the teacher, of course, of the middle school would know that pretty well. I mean, he would literally say, like, there's no point in actually giving you guys a job type of test where we try to figure out, what you want to do for a living and stuff, because he already knows that they all want to be pro heroes. So there's kind of no point in doing anything like that, in which that is the case. Izuku would listen for a bit, hear him talk, and then eventually would hear Bakugo kind of exclamate to everybody and basically start shouting that, yeah, he's gonna be the best hero, that no one else is gonna be able to touch him, and that he should be the only one even trying for UA because he's the only one with potential. But Izuku tells him that just because he has, powers of explosions and stuff like that doesn't mean he's the only one that could get into UA high school. And Izuku tells him, I'm going to get into UA high school, and I'm going to show everybody that I'm so much better than you. And this would not go down easy with Bakugo, because Bakugo would be upset that he even said this, and Bakugo would tell him that he's going to absolutely show him that he is nowhere near his power. He is nowhere near his potential. And Izuku says that they can go anytime, anywhere, and he'll lose every single time. And Izuku tells him that he doesn't stand even a sliver of a chance. He doesn't stand a sliver of a freaking chance. And that right there is a scary freaking thing, because, well, let's just say this. Bakugo thinks that, and knows really, that he has a powerful quirk, but the fact that Izuku is that confident, what kind of powers is he truly hiding? What kind of powers and, potential does Izuku truly have? Which that right there is a scary thing to think about, especially when you're trying to wrap your head around the fact that Izuku is that powerful. Like, he is potentially that strong, and it's gonna be a very, very, very scary thing to deal with. And, well, let's just say when Izuku Midoriya would get his first chance to even really let loose, would really let himself show off his own powers for himself, well, he would let loose and he would face off with the Sludge villain. And oh my goodness, Izuku Midoriya shows off immediately. because the Sludge villain would come forward trying to attack Izuku and immediately would be surrounded by ice, and he would be unable to even move, unable to even get through. And as Izuku basically looks at the Sludge villain, he tells him that he really should have thought this through, that this was arguably the worst choice that he possibly could have approached things with. And he tells him flat out that he's going to let down this ice, and it's going to be the worst decision that the Sludge villain has ever made to continue walking forward. Because the Sludge villain would walk forward and try to attack him after the ice would come down, and immediately, well, it's shown that the Sludge villain continuously gets slower and slower and slower, and he's confused. Like, how is this even happening? How is it even going on, or what's going on? And well, what he doesn't know is that Izuku has essentially put a frostbite-like curse to where the ice itself is now spreading throughout his kind of body and core temperature, and it's slowly but surely working his way through the entirety of the Sludge villain, making it so that it's like impossible for him to move. Now, Izuku can take this away whenever he wants, but the Sludge villain slows down so much that he basically comes to an entire halt, and the one and only All Might would eventually show himself and immediately obliterate the Sludge villain, as Izuku would protect himself with a wall of ice, and All Might would tell him that it's pretty damn impressive that someone that is, a student / someone who is like a newbie that is trying to get into being a hero was able to do the things he just did. I mean, it's pretty damn impressive he was able to keep up. And honestly, keep up is an understatement, because Izuku held his own and beat that guy very, very handedly. Now, with all that said, though, All Might would help Izuku clean up the Sludge villain. They would all get him into like little bottles of some sorts, and then eventually All Might would jump off as Izuku would exclaim that he'll be getting into UA and show why he's even better than All Might himself. And All Might would just smile as he jumps off, as he's gone, and Izuku just prepares himself for what's next, prepares himself to really take that next step. And that next step, well, is 10 months of training, 10 months of school, and 10 months of awaiting that UA entrance exam. And when he gets there, when he gets to that UA entrance exam, well, let's just say it's a scary thing that basically a scary showing of what he can do. Because let's just bring up the fact that Endeavor did get rid of this child, a child that has the potential to really just be even stronger than Endeavor himself, maybe even might be eclipsing Endeavor quicker than you could imagine. And Izuku, well, during the entrance exam, when he's fighting a ton of robots, would send ice everywhere, immediately impaling robot after robot, destroying all of them. And as basically 95% of them are destroyed in one foul swoop, everybody wonders, what the hell are they supposed to do? Like, seriously, all of the robots are freaking destroyed. What are they supposed to do now? I mean, they think about it for a little bit, and they would be given an opportunity later on, but Aizawa and many others who are currently watching, they're curious at what this guy can do and what Izuku is truly capable of, so they send out the 0-point robot. But as they do, it doesn't even matter. Izuku would cover it in ice and would then make it so that ice spikes would come out of the ice that surrounds it, and it would be impaled with a ton of spikes, destroyed from the inside out. And they would just watch this and think that not many heroes out there would be able to do that to the 0-point robot, and not many out there are even close to the power that kid holds. And they're excited to see what else he can do, excited to really get a full head of steam on what this kid is capable of. And before you know it, he'd be getting his letter into UA High School, and before you know it, he would be entering that door. That door is larger, the door that is larger than than he could even imagine, and Izuku Midoriya would be entering, preparing himself for whatever's to come. And well, the first person that really notices / gets, upset at him would be Katsuki Bakugo. And he would tell Bakugo that he may say whatever he wants, do whatever he wants, but all he knows is that he's the number one. And Bakugo is the number two, and he'll always be the number two. In which this would be a shocker, especially because some of the people that were with Izuku during that first entrance exam say that honestly, that Bakugo probably stood no chance because of what Izuku was able to do. And they explain to Bakugo what he did, but he tells them to shut their mouths and that they're a bunch of background characters, that he doesn't care about what they saw. He doesn't care that what Izuku did, but he's going to prove that he's better than him no matter what. In which Izuku says that really you should be focused on being a good hero, because focusing on, being better than somebody, I mean, that's kind of lame. That kind of, sucks. And he kind of tells him this, and he's like, you know what? You probably should rethink your whole reasoning for being a hero. And well, while as he's saying this, Aizawa would enter, and Aizawa would say that he agrees as well. He says that if you're trying to basically uphold somebody and prove that you're better than them, and that's your whole goal, I mean, you might want to rethink if you really want to continue doing this, because it might not be for you. In which, of course, Bakugo is pretty damn pissed about this, because he's like, who are you to say that I can't do this, and blah, blah, blah. But of course, Aizawa would tell them all to just be quiet now, because they're going to head out and do a quirk assessment. Since Katsuki Bakugo is so eager to show off what he can do, let's see if he really stands a chance. And Izuku, well, this is a pretty interesting exam, because when you start with the ball throw, he does throw it pretty far, but he doesn't have anything specifically to, at least at the moment, to throw the ball to a distance that you would think would be insane, right? He'd probably throw it 300 meters, and it would be mostly because he would shoot kind of like an ice blast to try to carry the ball as far as possible, but he's not going to throw it with an explosion, where Bakugo is going to have that advantage, is going to be able to throw it with an explosion farther than everyone else. But as he's gloating, as he's saying all these things, let's just say Aizawa doesn't take this too kindly and says that, fine, you know what? Whoever gets last place in this exam or in this quirk assessment will be expelled. But we obviously know that there's a little bit of truth and a little bit of lying to that specifically. But of course, Izuku would pass almost every single thing else as the number one of all the students. I mean, he's extremely fast using his ice, borderline working on teleportation itself, but he doesn't have a quite grasp on that just yet. But his speed is insane. His strength, his raw strength to basically press on anything like a grip strength or anything like that, easy. That is so easy for him. And everything else regarding speed and strength and stuff like that, he shows that he can literally just do as he wishes, and he can do exactly what he wants. And he proves that he's the number one, and he gets the number one as well. And Bakugo, all he's thinking about is the fact that he wants to prove to Izuku that he's still better than him, even though he was outclassed in this specific regard. Now, as we kind of get to, further on, as we push to the next part of their training, their heroes versus villains, Bakugo himself has a different idea. And that different idea is wanting to fight Izuku as soon as possible. He wants to take on this guy. Watch him just crumble. He wants to beat him into submission. That is what he wants to do. He wants to absolutely embarrass Izuku Midoriya. But Izuku, he's not going for that. He doesn't think that he's going to get embarrassed, and he's far from the idea of, losing to someone like Bakugo. But All Might says, you know what? How about this? Since you guys are so eager, we're going to scrap the heroes versus villains, and we're going to have these two face one-on-one. Everyone else will still do their heroes versus villains, but these two seem to be very eager. In which Izuku basically says, like, I'm not that eager. Like, if he wants to fight, we can fight, but I mean, I'm here to just train. I'm here to get stronger. I'm here to get better. In which All Might raises his hands a little bit and says, okay, I hear you. But since he's really eager, let's just say, I think it would be best to have you guys go one-on-one. In which Izuku shrugs his shoulders and says, hey, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. Just understand that I'm going to embarrass him. In which Bakugo is pissed to hear this, and before All Might could even tell them to basically start their fight, Bakugo goes spiraling forward, right at Izuku. But as Izuku watches Bakugo charge forward with an explosion, well, Izuku would immediately stop him, immediately putting a wall right in front of him that he smashes into, and immediately would start covering his hands and his arms with ice. And he tells Bakugo that he doesn't stand a chance in this, that he might as well just give it up right now, or he's just going to continue to get embarrassed. And Bakugo continues to try to explode the ice off of his arms, but it seems like there's nothing that's going to work. It seems like the ice is borderline unbreakable, and Izuku tells him, you know what? Fine, let's make this fair. He would immediately get rid of the ice that surrounds his arms and would tell him to warm up a little bit. And then Izuku would go and cover his body with ice armor, almost like covering his entire body, excluding his eyes so he can see. And he tells Bakugo to go forward, to fight him, to try to break through his defenses. And well, it doesn't go very well, because Bakugo would shoot explosion after explosion, and then even shoots a giant explosion with his grenade-like gauntlet, and it would do nothing. It would do absolutely zero. And everybody would stand there shocked, thinking, oh no, that must have hurt Izuku. Like, that explosion was insane. But no, not a single scratch, not a single chip, and Izuku lands one punch to Bakugo's stomach with his ice fist, and he would slam him to the ground, and Bakugo would be out cold. The ice would shed off of Izuku, and he would tell Bakugo that he really should have thought about what he was doing, because, well, now he's gonna wake up massively embarrassed. And as all this was occurring, well, let's just say someone is watching and someone is curious. I mean, very curious about Izuku Midoriya, and that person is Todoroki. Todoroki's really curious about his ice powers, what he can do, how he can do it. And Izuku tells him, you know, he's always been able to do stuff like this, explains a couple things, in which Todoroki says that, well, he also has ice powers as well. But Izuku looks at him closely and wonders, why do you look so familiar? You look really familiar. Have we met before? In which Todoroki says, I don't think so. I'm not sure, but I mean, I feel like I would recognize you. In which, of course, Izuku's like, you know, that's really fair. But he basically just explains how he's able to do things with his certain ice powers and stuff like that. In which Todoroki listens pretty closely, curious about, you know, just maybe he can kind of implement some things as well. But Izuku kind of just shrugs it off, the idea of, like, you know, knowing who he is, because he honestly doesn't know, and he's not sure if he really knows him. But of course, he does. It's just he was too young to truly understand who and what was going on, or truly understand who he really was. Now, with all that said, Izuku is kind of just talking to Todoroki, you know, talk about this, talk about that, you know, like, oh, like, you can, you know, you could try to do this with your quirk, or this with your quirk, and, you know, you could try to do this. And basically Todoroki tells him all these things, but in all honesty, he can't really do any of those things, at least not to the degree that someone like Izuku would be doing. And even though that is the case, he would listen to these kind of ideas, and he would kind of get a grasp on some of the things that Izuku is saying. Now, as he gets a grasp on some of the things Izuku is saying, well, let's just say that they both start kind of prepping and getting ready for whatever's next. Because after all of them do their heroes versus villains, after everyone does their things, blah, 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 well, we then go to the USJ, in which the USJ is something that is going to be pretty damn important because this is going to be the first time that they fight against real villains. And the real villains, well, they are ready for an absolute fight. Because when they arrive, when they get inside, and the USJ starts getting invaded by the League of Villains, Izuku gets teleported away into a giant pit or a giant lake of water. And his choices are pretty limited, especially when he starts seeing these creatures swimming all about. And he decides, you know what? I mean, this is easy enough. He swims up, and as he's swimming up, he would get grabbed by Asui, in which he would tell Asui to drop him back down and to not worry about it. In which she says, like, are you crazy? Like, they're gonna kill you. But he says no, he'll just freeze the entire lake, in which Asui shrugs her shoulders and does just that, throws him back in there, as that's exactly what he does. Freezes the entire lake, trapping all the villains inside, or at least all the water villains inside there, and they would just walk across the ice with the help of Izuku, and they would head off to basically help Aizawa and or get everyone to safety. And help Aizawa is the main thing that Izuku wants to do, because Izuku covers the entire field, basically the entire area, in ice, making it so extremely hard for all the villains, and then trapping all the villains in like this ice cage that they can no longer get out of. As he does this though, Izuku has a choice to be made. What's the approach here? How should he approach handling these League of Villains, Shigaraki, Kurogiri, and all of them? And there's very limited things that he can do, but Izuku knows that he has quite a few questionable ideas that he could definitely get into. For starters, he immediately starts helping Aizawa try to capture Shigaraki. But as he tries to do this with his ice, they would be attacked by the Nomu. So he would immediately, he would adapt his Sub-Zero armor, and he would begin to take blows from the Nomu, hit after hit, but it seems like they're doing nothing. The Nomu would begin unleashing a ton of punches, and Aizawa would ask Izuku, are you okay? Like, is everything fine? Like, are you doing fine? In which Izuku would tell him, yeah, he's doing just fine, to trust him on this one. In which Aizawa shrugs his shoulders and says it's not like they have much of a choice right now. And Izuku, well, he would take a barrage of punches from the Nomu, leading to his armor, his ice armor, being slightly chipped. And Izuku smirks. Wow, something unbreakable, I thought, now is breakable. Interesting. But as he turns toward the Nomu, he would land two fists on the stomach of the Nomu, landing a punch that sends the Nomu basically out of the entirety of the USJ. Izuku says that it seems that the Nomu wasn't ready for all of his attacks to be accumulated and sent right back at him, and it seems like, well, Shigaraki is in a bad spot as well, because with the Nomu handled and basically all the other villains done as well, it seems like Shigaraki doesn't have much of a chance to escape, especially when every portal that continues to show up gets blocked off by a sheet of ice and he's unable to enter any of them. And this is a pretty scary thing for Shigaraki, because he's believing very quickly that this was a bad choice, and that maybe he was even sent here on purpose by All For One. But he doesn't believe that fully. It's just All For One seems to have miscalculated by just a little bit, not knowing that someone, just a kid, would have the powers of an ice god himself. And he would be able to surround Shigaraki and Kurogiri, giving both of them the frostbite curse, unable to really move and unable to really utilize their quirks. And they would then await for backup and await for people to arrive as other heroes would come, and they would capture the villains and send them packing back to prison. As all of them are put in prison, Izuku would be told that he did one hell of a job that many other pro heroes wouldn't have been able to do. And Izuku basically tells them that he's just here to help out where he can. He's just here to do what he can, but at the same time, he knows what he's capable of, and he knows that it is pretty damn impressive what he can truly do. But as he kind of talks about this, as he basically talks about the fact that he's just that dude, and he's absolutely him. Izuku would then kind of go on with talking about what they should do next. Like what's the next course of action for them with this whole thing being calmed down and now potentially brought to an end, because that is a good thing to question, a good thing to really think about. Because what do they do next? In which Aizawa says they're going to take a little bit of time off, but what they're going to do next is prepare for the UA Sports Festival, and that right there is what they really need to be ready for, because this would be their first showing of what every last one of them could truly do. And well, Izuku Midoriya is going to show off exactly what he can do, because he's going to show off his speed, his agility, his presence alone, and he's going to show everybody the level that he's truly at, and the level that many others aren't even going to touch. And well, there's someone else that is going to be watching, someone else that is going to be shocked, and someone else that won't be able to believe their own eyes when they see it, and that is Endeavor. Endeavor is going to be in complete shock and in complete awe when he realizes who this kid is and where he came from, because he starts showing off immediately when he talks to everybody in the area, everybody in the UA or the UA Sports Festival, when he talks to everybody there. And well, let's just say Endeavor's listening, and he wonders why this kid seems so familiar. He wonders why the look of him looks so familiar, and he wonders why everything about him seems so familiar, because this is his own son, a son that he casted away, a son that he thought wasn't strong enough, and a son that he thought was going to be weak, and a son that wouldn't have been prepared and would never be prepared to truly become the next up-and-coming hero to dethrone All Might. But he wouldn't imagine in his years of living, in his entire time of being a hero, he couldn't imagine that he would be watching the son that he thought was useless and he thought was basically going to be given away and just sent off into wherever he was going to go, would eventually show up here and show up to be one of the strongest students that UA has ever seen. Because when they see him do the obstacle course race, immediately just absolutely just destroying it, just going at insane speeds, gliding on his ice, and as he would surpass everybody, and even Todoroki could not keep up, as Bakugo and Todoroki would get second and third place respectively. Well, let's just say they were not prepared for anything he could do. And when Izuku Midoriya shows his ice powers that he's capable of using, especially in the cavalry battle, well, let's just say even Endeavor is at a loss for words, because he watches him surround an area in ice and completely protect Tokiyami, Mihatsume, Ochaku Uraka, and himself, getting an easy win in the cavalry battle, leading them to the one-on-ones. And Izuku, after defeating Hitoshi Shinso, would go head-to-head with Todoroki, his brother he knew nothing about. Izuku would go head-to-head with him, and he would be told before it even started, he would be walked up to by Endeavor and told to get him to use his fire. Because if he does, well, he wouldn't even stand a chance, not even close. And that he'll prove that he's a failure. And Izuku's like, what are you even talking about, man? Prove that I will prove that I'm a failure? Like, I don't get what your issue with me is, man. But, like, leave me alone. Like, I'm going to do whatever I got to do to win. In which he walks away, and Endeavor realizes, like, the kid has no clue who he is. Or he does know who he is, but he has no clue that he's obviously, the father of him. And he has no idea anything that's happening. And, well, it's probably best to keep it that way. I mean, at the end of the day, there's really no point in telling him, at least not at this point. And, yeah, I mean, let's just continue on with what we're going to do. And Izuku goes head-to-head with Todoroki, and he begins to absolutely just whoop on Todoroki. Ice versus ice, it's not even close. And eventually, he does get him to utilize that fire side just out of just kind of pressuring, and as basically after he basically tells him, like, that is your quirk, that is your power, blah, blah, blah. He finally gets him to use it, but even that is far from enough. Izuku would even turn his fire, the fire that is getting shot into him, or shot at him, excuse me, into ice, like ice spikes themselves, completely getting rid of the fire that goes for him or goes in front of him. And it's kind of wild to see. He's turning fire itself into basically ice. That is freaking scary. How is he able to do that? Like, that's insane. That's ridiculous. That is absurd. And let's just say Endeavor's watching this, and he couldn't be more pissed off. He couldn't be more angry. He couldn't be more frustrated. He couldn't be more absolutely just destroyed and distraught at the fact that he is watching a kid that is his own, watching him absolutely outclass the kid he thought would be the prodigy. He thought would be the next and up and coming hero. And he thought this kid, the kid that is showing off these godly powers, was never going to amount to anything. But Izuku, after beating Todoroki, after beating Tenya Ida in a very convincing fashion, and then absolutely whooping on Bakugo the same way he whooped on him just a couple weeks prior, well, after doing all of that, he would stand tall on his own podium, creating a podium out of ice and a seat out of ice and even a crown out of ice. And he would laugh it off, putting the crown on, and he would tell everybody that it was one hell of a ride. And it was great. It was enjoyable. It was fun. But at the end of the day, there was only one way this was going to end, and that's with Izuku Midoriya sitting on his ice throne, in which everybody would cheer and they would think, this kid is awesome. Like, that is freaking cool. Like, this guy just created a throne out of ice. He just beat everybody with ice powers that no one has ever seen before. Like, this is absurd. Like, what else could he have in his arsenal? What else could he have potentially to utilize? Like, this is insane. This is awesome, in which that is definitely the case, because Izuku shows off and Izuku proves to everyone that he is at a totally different level. And this gets, we're talking piles of internship offers, piles of internships, more and more and more, and one from Endeavor. And this was interesting because Izuku was kind of like, well, I don't know why he was treating me that way. Like, he's just he was kind of weird, but he is like the number 2 hero, so probably would be a good idea to go and train by him. And that's what he does. He doesn't think about it much, but what he would learn there would shock him to his core, that Endeavor is actually his father. And Endeavor would tell him this, tell him these weird and unorthodox lies, but Todoroki, or Shoto Todoroki, excuse me, would tell him that whatever his father is saying, that's untruthful. Like, that he's lying. That the story that he's heard from his mother way back in the day was that we had another kid or another brother that was sent through the adoption system. So, aka, Endeavor was making up some BS, and now Izuku knows that he is his father, but he knows that he's like just a terrible person. But you could kind of guess that anyways, just the way he was acting. And Izuku now knows everything, right? He knows that this guy is terrible, this guy is a horrible person, and blah, blah, blah. And he tells him, look, you're going to train us, you're not going to train us, whatever. Get on with whatever you're going to do. There's no point of sitting here doing nothing, in which eventually Endeavor does train them a little bit, but the day they have to go to Hosu City, they would be going to basically look to try and, I want to say get into trouble, but try and basically learn from the overpopulated villain side of that city. And they would learn quickly that, well, let's just say they're going to be dealing with a very scary villain in the Hero Killer. But the Hero Killer, he would not be attacking some random civilian, some random hero they don't know, but he would actually be attacking Tenya Ida, one of their own classmates. And that would be shocking in itself and completely out of left field, because they would have no idea, like, this is insane. What do you mean? Why are you attacking Tenya? But of course, it would be because of what Tenya decided to try to do, trying to kill the Hero Killer himself after what happened to his brother. Now, with all that said, Izuku and Todoroki, with both their ice powers and Todoroki's fire, it would make for a pretty damn hard thing for the Hero Killer to deal with. And then especially when Izuku decides to go hand to hand with his Sub-Zero armor, unable to cut through the armor at all, Izuku would be beating on the Hero Killer and would knock him out entirely and would get him covered in ice. And, well, let's just say the heroes, they weren't too happy that Izuku and them did this on their own, but they're happy to get the Hero Killer off the streets. And Todoroki and also Izuku would tell Tenya that he needs to get his shit together, because that right there, what he just did was just asking to basically die. And nobody wants to see him pass on to the next life. Nobody wants to see him croak over and die. They want to see him continue on, be better, be stronger, and continue on being, a great hero, or possibly push himself to be a great hero. He doesn't want to, they don't ever want to see him, be an idiot like this again and somehow get himself killed. Now, with all that said, though, Izuku and Todoroki head off back to UA after the internships are cut short because of this entire debacle. And this would lead them to preparing for the UA final exams. And Izuku would be pretty confident about those exams, pretty confident about anything that is to come within these exams. Now, for starters, he would work with and also do things involving basically preparing for those exams, or the written portion of those exams, but he would also be preparing for something else, a practical exam, but a practical exam that he would have no clue would actually be against All Might himself. Now, this would be shocking. All Might, are you serious? We're going against All Might, which would shock him massively. At the end of the day, this would be a scary thing to do, going head-to-head with All Might. But the fact that he's going head-to-head with All Might, with Bakugo next to him, makes him even more concerned. Not because he doesn't think Bakugo is capable of doing anything, but the fact that he just knows that getting along with Bakugo and fighting alongside each other will just never freaking work. It just will never work the way he would like it to work, because that's right there is the reality. That's Izuku will always have to deal with Bakugo, and will always have to kind of deal with the sour attitude that Bakugo has toward him, and he's always going to have to deal with the BS that Bakugo will ensue and just continue on just creating, especially thinking that he's just higher than life itself and bigger than anything and better than everyone, and he's just annoyed by this. So as they stand by the gates side by side, and as he looks at Bakugo and shakes his head, Bakugo would look back and he would tell him to just stay out of his way, and that he'll beat All Might by himself, and he doesn't need his stupid ass tricks, in which he would fly off with explosions toward All Might, and Izuku would just be looking at him as he's flying off, knowing that that's not going to end very well. But for now, That's where we're going to end off part 1 of 2 of what if Deku had godly ice, or had a godly ice quirk. Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo are going to take on All Might, but Izuku initially kind of watches Bakugo take on the fight against All Might. He kind of thinks to himself, like, what's the point of me trying to help this guy? Like, seriously, he's going to fail no matter what, and he continuously kind of ignores anything and everything. I mean, every time he tries to tell him, like, dude, you're not going to be able to do this, or, hey, bro, like, we should really approach things in a different kind of way, he's always ignored. Every single time. Almost every single time, Bakugo is just like, no, like, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you're going to get yourself hurt, get yourself killed, get yourself something out at some point. And he tries to tell Bakugo, but of course, like I said, Bakugo just flat out doesn't listen. So Izuku kind of stands there and waits. And as he waits, he watches an absolute beating. I mean, he watches Bakugo get absolutely smacked on by All Might. And then eventually Izuku is like, you know what? Okay, time to enter this fight. In which he does, and quickly he saves Bakugo, putting him kind of in a safe distance away from All Might, and he begins to immediately utilize ice powers on All Might himself. And as he does this, oh, it is ridiculous. Izuku is overwhelming All Might very quickly, especially slowing him down massively. Basically to the point where All Might is feeling this massive slow and this massive amount of kind of slowness to his movements, and also his fighting in general, and he seems to not be able to get any upper hand on Izuku. Not that Izuku is like 10 times stronger than All Might or anything like that, but it's just he has so much hacks that he's borderline just holding All Might down entirely, forcing him to basically not move at all. And it's pretty shocking for everyone. Everyone's like, whoa, like, this is pretty damn wild. Like, how is he able to do this? Like, this is insane. Like, we're saying that Izuku Midoriya, the one we've been working with, yes, we know that he's super strong and powerful, but that's the same person that is doing this. That's the same person that is basically putting up such a very high level fight that, like, everyone is just in disbelief that he's doing this to the number one hero, or, you know, basically the number one hero currently. Like, that's ridiculous. This is, like, insane. Like, they can't even wrap their head around the idea that he's able to do this. Like, it's pretty kind of crazy to watch Izuku do the things he's doing, slowing All Might down, you know, kind of progressing in the fight quicker than you could imagine, and everybody is just watching an absolute masterclass. And frankly, if Endeavor was watching this, or Endeavor was, you know, keeping an eye on this like ever, he would realize that he made a massive mistake. Because guess what? Endeavor just threw away a child that would have easily have the potential of becoming the number one hero. It's just he was too thoughtless. He wasn't thinking about the powers that Izuku could possibly maintain, and he wasn't thinking that he would have ice powers that would borderline make him a god. And Izuku, well, he continues training, and this training, after defeating All Might, or at least getting to the point where they can escape or defeat him, quote unquote, he continues his training as they go into the forest training camp. And the forest training camp is perfect for Izuku because he starts learning almost everything. I mean, he starts learning various different techniques that he's trying to understand, and various techniques that he hasn't even basically touched on until right now. And 2 weeks straight of just training is something that Izuku is able to maintain, and also is something that he is happily going to get used to, because that's a lot of potential that is definitely there for the taking for him. And he's just sitting there and preparing and working out and basically learning these new techniques. and his power is just growing more and more and more and more. And it's absolutely ridiculous, because Izuku seems to be at a level that many others will question how he even got there, even question if maybe he is some sort of sentient being that came from the gods themselves. But he's not. He's just like them. He breathes the same air as them. He walks the same ground as them. He steps just like them, and he works just as hard, if not harder. But Izuku Midoriya was just blessed, just a lot greater than everyone else. After the 2 weeks of training, we would have a run through of quite a bit of things. But one thing that Izuku was very, very, very tempted at messing with was the idea of him healing people with his basically kind of chirokinetic regeneration of some sorts. So one day he would walk up to All Might and tell him that he thinks that he can basically put him back in a spot where he is of high value once again, that he is of the same strength that he used to be. In which All Might questions, like, what is he talking about? Like, he's still the same strength and blah, blah, blah. But he tells him that he knows that he is nowhere near the strength that he once was. He knows that that's just far from, the case, right? He's nowhere near it. And it's nothing wrong with that. Stuff happened, whatever happened, if it was injury, if it was, time itself, he's not sure, but he knows that something happened to All Might. But he says that he can heal him, he can fix it, and that he can make him stronger once again, in which he tells All Might, as long as he trusts him, that they can do this. And that's exactly what All Might does. He tells the kid, okay, if you could do this, well, I trust you, right? In which immediately Izuku would encapsulate All Might in ice, and as he does this, he tells All Might within the ice that he'll have to stay there for a while. Might be a little chilly, but he can temper with the temperature here and there, and he'll make sure that it's somewhat comfortable. And he tells him to be patient, very, very patient. And as they're waiting, as 1 day would pass, 2 days would pass, and then as we're getting to the 3rd day, they would be standing there waiting and seeing as All Might would be recovering. But the thing is, an attack would then occur, an attack by All For One. All For One would begin attacking, and he would start a quest to look for All Might, to take down All Might, to destroy and kill All Might. That's his goal, that's his wants, that's his desires, and All Might has to be ready for a fight. Izuku looks at All Might and wonders if he's even ready just yet, but he shakes his head and he tells All Might, well, it seems like they don't have much of a choice. He gets him out of the ice and says that he can heal him more later if need be. But as All Might recovers and starts, warming himself up, he starts realizing stuff pretty damn fast. He starts realizing that he is stronger than you could possibly imagine. He starts realizing that his strength is off the freaking charts. He realizes that his strength has come back in dividends, in absolute dividends, and his strength seems to be close to his peak performance, his peak in terms of, strength and power. He never thought he would be back here. He never thought he would get back here. He never thought there would even be a chance he would be close to the power he once had, but he's here. His power is overwhelming, even to himself. And he can't even freaking believe it. But here's the thing. There is something to believe. And frankly, he should believe it. Because Izuku watches as All Might goes out to fight All For One. And All For One doesn't even stand a chance. And he falls quicker than you could imagine. And All Might stands tall, still in his All Might form. And he would tell everybody that kid right there, that Izuku Midoriya, he would tell all the heroes, all the agencies, that he is the reason that basically he is going to be the hero he once was and can continue being the hero that he is. And everybody is in absolute shock at the fact that he was able to basically revert time, almost or borderline revert time. And he is now at a spot where he is not only so much stronger than he, it was now, but he is almost back to the peak performance he was once at when he was younger. And now All Might can continue his heroics, and or hero journey, and continue saving people, at least for a short amount of time. Now, he's not going to be able to hold on to all of his power. We all know that to be the case. But Izuku has definitely helped him maintain time and maintain some time that he wasn't going to have in the first place. And that right there is a gift that many could never overlook. And that right there is a gift that many could truly never look past. And Izuku Midoriya, he will never look past that gift. He will never look past what was given to him and the strength that basically was, All Might would never look past the strength that was given to him. And Izuku Midoriya himself will never look past the chance that he got to really help society this much, to help society that much more than you could think. And Izuku has helped so much throughout this time, and even many people would question if he should really even do his provisional hero license. Why not just give it to him now? He just did something that nobody thought possible, and he just did something that many would just, immediately kind of immediately and basically kind of give someone a chance at being a provisional hero nonetheless. Like, they would just, hey, here, take it, provisional hero license exam now, and there you go. And that right there is an insane chance that he could have gotten, and frankly, a chance that Izuku would have liked to gain immediately, but he would still have to take his provisional hero license exam test, but he would pass that immediately. Like, they would go on, they would do exactly that. They would of course do the provisional hero license exam, but Izuku would be able to handle so much and so quickly. Like, for starters, I mean, he would have to deal with the regular, portion where you gotta kind of hit the balls on these different lights of different people to eliminate them. But that's the easy portion. But things even get easier when Izuku has to face off with a ton of villains, and he could just cover the entire area, basically the entire area in ice, capturing and also stopping a ton of these villains from doing a single thing. Like, these villains genuinely, or these fake villains, really, that's what they are, fake villains, but these fake villains can't do a single thing to even counteract what he's doing. There's not a single answer he could really approach things with, and Izuku handles basically the fight and handles everything to do with the provisional hero license exam with flying colors. Now, as that quote-unquote test would finish up, and as that quote-unquote test would be done and dusted, Izuku himself would be thinking, like, okay, so what's next? Like, surely what's next? Like, what are we going to do next and stuff like that? And, well, we have something that is basically the next thing that they have to do, and that is basically getting ready for their work studies. And Izuku, well, he's excited to actually work with some different hero agencies, curious at what agency he will actually be able to work with. Now, first off, they do go head-to-head with, well, Mirio Togata himself, and it's a pretty damn cool experience. Mirio is no joke. Honestly, he seems even stronger than what Izuku thought in the first place. Like, he thought Mirio was strong, but not this strong. This is pretty damn wild. Like, his strength seems off the charts, almost like it's going up in increments and or kind of in multipliers. Now, even though that is the case, Izuku doesn't know that he has one for all, but that is what he is realizing, at least at the moment, just doesn't know what it is word for word. But as Izuku is basically taking on these challenges, as he's working with Mirio, as they basically go and face off with each other, and they do pretty damn well against each other, and Mirio, well, with his quirk, he's definitely able to get around some of Izuku's strengths and really expose some of his weaknesses. But Izuku, well, you could say the same thing for him as well, being able to expose some of the weaknesses that Mirio is definitely showing. On top of that, well, let's just say this. Izuku is basically impressing Mirio to a degree that is really, really, really high. But not just the fact that he's impressing him. Well, let's just say Sir Night-Eye has already been impressed by him, and he's excited to work with him already. I mean, legitimately, he's already interested in working with Izuku, so it's definitely something that that is going to happen in the near future, especially with what Izuku has done for All Might himself. And we all know how fond Sir Night-Eye is of All Might, even if they don't always get along, and even if they don't always aren't always, you know, on the right page, or, you know, on like kind of in the same kind of idea space. Now, they might not get along or have agreements every single time, but one thing they can agree on is that the potential of Izuku is wild. That his potential is off the charts, and Izuku Midoriya, he continues to show exactly that. He continues to show that his potential is like no one else's, and they even learn, and well, basically, not All Might, but Sir Night-Eye, excuse me, I lost my train of thought there for a second, but Sir Night-Eye would even learn that Izuku is the son of Endeavor. Now, it's actually kind of weird because he didn't even know that. I mean, even according to all the kind of the information he's gotten and stuff like that, he actually wasn't the son of Endeavor. He's actually the son of someone else. But of course, that's because he was adopted. Now, it is an interesting aspect, and he wonders if that weird marriage thing that they did actually worked out. But it seems like they actually got rid of a kid that had the potential of being just one of the strongest heroes in existence. And it's ironic in a way that they did that when they could have had someone that powerful in their own bloodline, or well, is in their bloodline, but of course not in a technicality now, because of just, you know, them or Izuku not basically being associated with them as well. Now, like in a technical sense, excuse me, he is, obviously, because he is blood related, but Izuku, for his own information, he believes that, and truly knows, like that's the real thing, he believes and truly knows that he is the son of Inko Midoriya, and that's what matters to him. Now, this is where we get Izuku and Sir Night-Eye and many others trying to figure out something, and that something is obviously learning about kind of the Shihazaikai, learning about the one and only Overhaul and stuff like that. But Izuku's kind of the perfect person to really put in your ranks to deal with Overhaul and to deal with the Shihazaikai. Because for starters, when they run into Overhaul for the first time, with Eri being terrified, Izuku would easily be able to freeze Overhaul, make it so that he can no longer take off the gloves that are basically stopping him from actually utilizing his quirk, but also freeze him entirely so he can't move, and it basically puts him in a prison borderline. And as they're potentially setting up for the next attack and the next kind of thing to take down the Shihazaikai base, Izuku is the perfect person to be a part of this as well, because Izuku is going to be able to basically shut down and or kind of freeze the entirety of the area, and make it so that it is extremely easy for basically everyone to take over, for everyone to stop these villains, and for everyone to capture / put them all into prison. And it's very easy to do so with what they are trying to do. And it's a pretty basic concept, in all honesty, especially with the idea of how well Izuku can freeze over or make a difference with freezing and or kind of icing over a ton of the area, changing the domain to his kind of own will. And it seems like Izuku's power seemingly has no end to it, and his power seems to just continue to grow, and nobody knows where it will stop growing truly. So after the Shiozaikai base is completely covered in ice and all the villains are captured and dealt with, Izuku, well, he is ready for whatever is going to happen next, because Izuku is excited to really get a hold of what his potential is going to be like, and what his potential is as a future hero. Now, he has a couple other things to get a hold of, because the one thing he ends up having to actually do very soon is the fact that he actually has to deal with a monstrous creature that they end up finding. And this monstrous creature, well, we know as Gigantomachia. And this creature is found in the mountains. And they wonder, like, where did this thing come from? Where is it from? What is this thing, right? Is it from All For One's, like, lackeys or something like that? In which they don't really know. But they know that there's definitely danger regarding this. And having someone like Izuku, well, they might be able to actually stop the potential danger before it even happens. And that's what he's able to do. He's able to freeze the monster and basically put him in some sort of ice domain and make it so that they legitimately don't have to worry about this creature continuing a somewhat warpath if it somehow ends up being to that point. So Izuku will easily be able to freeze off and or help with the imprisonment and or kind of figuring out what's wrong with this creature, or figure out if this creature is good, bad, or anything in between. And he's able to do that by keeping everyone safe and keeping everyone from harm, especially when putting this kind of creature behind bars or frozen within the ice. And Izuku continues to be helpful in almost every single regard you could imagine, and would continue working with Sir Night-Eye's agency. Of course, he would still have school. He would still have stuff with academia, and would still have stuff with UA High School. But at the end of the day, the big potential he has is as an actual hero. His hero journey is not over just yet. And he does have some training to get into, some training against, class 1B, and that training is definitely fruitful, but it's not really training that matters that much in a way. And the reason for this is because Izuku himself is at a totally different level at this point, powers borderline of an ice god, and Izuku is showing off his insane potential day in and day out, as if there's really no chance. There's really no chance, no real chance for anybody in Class 1B to take him down. And the team he goes up against, he might be at a disadvantage because they're down one person going against a team that has obviously Shinso added to it, so it's a 4 versus 5, but it does not mean that, Izuku's going to somehow lose. Being able to freeze over the area and defeat that team of in Class 1B before you can even know it. Freezing over the area, putting them all kind of in quote unquote imprisonment, and Izuku himself, well, he's excited to see what's going to happen next. Excited to see what he can do next. And that right there is the real thing. Because Izuku Midoriya, he's excited to continue to uphold everything he possibly can. His potential seems to be limitless, and he wants to prove to everyone that his potential really is limitless. And it's crazy because he even does some things as he grows a little older, meeting with his actual mother, at least his actual mother in the blood sense. And he basically tells her that he doesn't, blame her at all. He knows how terrible Endeavor was. He knows how terrible his actual father was, but he wants her to know that he doesn't blame her, and honestly everything worked out for the better, in which that's a conversation they end up having, a conversation that really is the truth, a conversation about how really him leaving, him being gone, him being basically cast away was the best decision that possibly could have happened for him, for his future, and really for for the family that he eventually gained and the family he would eventually love. And that is the reality of it. And that is, well, sounds like the harsh reality, but it's just the truth. But Izuku Midoriya's journey for being a hero would continue on. He would continue growing in strength and growing in power. And many would look at his powers as the next staple, the next statement, and the next chance for everybody in Japan, and maybe even in the entire world, to stay safe, to stay secure, and live life without worries and without regret. But Izuku Midoriya's powers, well, if he grew god levels of power or godlike powers, who says that there isn't going to be another person born just like him sooner than you could imagine? Could be 5 years, could be 1 year, could be 10, it could be hundreds, but you never know. Once these powers, this strength, and this potential is added to this world, once all of those things are made possible in this world, you never truly know who the next person having and honestly holding on to that insane strength will end up being. But that's for a story for another time, another day, and a story that may not be spoken.